Bond. James Bond.
In case I don't see ya. Good afternoon, good evening, and good night.
Did we just become best friends?
Yup! Sublime!
You keep using that word. I don't think it means what you think it means.
Tear me apart, Lisa!
But mostly I hate the way I don't hate you. Not even close. Not even a little bit. Not even at all.
I'm gonna make him an offer he can't refuse.
Hi, friends, and welcome to another episode of You Haven't Seen That, a movie discussion podcast where we introduce our friend Ben to movies he should have seen a long time ago. I'm your host, Amanda.
I'm Geoff.
And I'm Benjamin, as Mrs. Robinson would say.
Well, it's a great introduction to the movie that we're discussing today, which would be The Graduate. And stick around until the end. We'll be talking about our top 4 favorite Simon and Garfunkel songs in honor of this movie.
The Graduate, released December of 1967, directed by Mike Nichols. This was his second movie, famously the director as well of The Birdcage, Charlie Wilson's War, movies like that. This movie stars Anne Bancroft, Catherine Ross, and introduces a young star by the name of Dustin Hoffman, little known name in Hollywood nowadays. This movie's budget was $3 million, and this movie went on to gross $105 million at the domestic box office. This was the highest grossing movie in North America in 1967. I found a thing that adjusted its box office for inflation. It would be a top 25 movie all time at the domestic box office, which is a crazy thing to think about with the kind of movie that it is. Very received well critically. This had an 86% on Rotten Tomatoes, and it received 7 Oscar nominations, winning for Best Director for Mike Nichols, and it was nominated as well in Picture, Actor, Actress, Supporting Actress, Screenplay, and Cinematography. It lost Picture that year to In the Heat of the Night.
That was a lot of stuff, but thank you.
I think I rambled on a little bit more with some of that.
Well, no, I'm sorry. I didn't mean it like that was too much stuff. I just meant like, wow, what a movie.
Right?
What an
So
accomplishment.
much stuff. So many things.
Wow, look at all the things it did.
Oh, okay. Ben, tell us your history with this movie.
I was unlike you, Amanda, which when we learned we were doing this, seemed to have no idea what it was about. I did know the premise of it, and I knew the song Mrs. Robinson from it. So that was kind of the extent. I knew like culturally kind of some of the things from it, but I had never really seen any clips or anything related to the movie.
All right. And what about you, Geoff?
So my history with this movie, I've only seen this movie once. I started doing a film challenge, kind of an annual film challenge through Reddit, through Letterboxd, starting in 2021, called the Criterion Challenge, which is you watch a different 52 Criterion movies a year that fit a certain set of criteria that whoever created this challenge came up with. So that is how I watched this movie for the first time. This fell into the Oscar winners category in the year that I watched it, which was July 2021. So I knew very little about this movie. I knew of Dustin Hoffman starred in it. I vaguely knew the connection to Simon and Garfunkel, but that was about it. I entered this movie for the first time blind, so I was excited to rewatch it this time around.
Yeah. And as Ben indicated earlier, and if you listened to our previous episodes, you will have heard that I have no history with this movie. I didn't even really know it existed. So didn't know the plot, didn't know who was in it, didn't know anything about it. So Geoff, what is your score for The Graduate?
So the first time I saw The Graduate, I gave it a 4.5 out of 5. And I think I'm going to keep my rating the same this time around. I love this movie. Weirdly, I didn't think I would like a character like Ben Braddock as much as I did or do, but I found his story and the journey that he goes through really interesting and compelling. And I think it tackles a lot of themes relevant to kind of that young adult life. And I love this movie. 4.5 out of 5.
And what about you, Ben?
This is a movie I've always wanted to see. It's been on my list for forever of ones that I'd been interested in seeing. Um, I was kind of like, what the heck with this movie? Um, it kind of reminded me of Chinatown in a way where I was like, this is one of the best films of all time, question mark, question mark, question mark. I didn't like it that much. I I really didn't like the main character, which we'll get into. Um, I was really underwhelmed by it. I was really disappointed by it, and I was kind of like, what is going on here for most of the time? I'm giving it a 2.25. Sorry,
Mm.
graduate.
Well,
No graduating for this movie.
I'm gonna say it's always sad when you like want to watch a movie and
I
you're
really
really
wanted I
interested in
wanted to
it.
Hmm.
love it. I was like, maybe this will
Yeah,
be like a favorite of mine, and it was not close.
yeah.
Mm.
So uh, Jeff's been dying to hear what I think about
I've been dying to. I just talked to my wife about this. I have a theory of what I thought you'd think about it.
that. Um, yeah, so I'm in the minority with you, Ben.
That makes us the majority of this podcast.
Well,
The
of this
minority in terms of
podcast, but
cinema.
not in life. Um, yeah, I'm giving it a 2.5. Honestly, if you had asked me straight out of watching it, I would have given it lower. But I read a bunch of Letterboxd reviews and I was like, okay, obviously there's a lot of things that people think about this movie that are above where I'm thinking and made me see it in a little bit more of a favorable light, but not by much. So 2.5 it is.
I said to my wife, because she came in the room right when I was finishing the movie,
Mhm.
and I was like, what the heck? And then I said, I think Amanda's gonna hate this.
That was secretly sitting in the back of my mind. I know I mentioned to you, Amanda, when we were talking about it, I was like, I think you liked parts of it, but also you were really disconnected for portions of this movie, and you were making a couple comments. I was like, I don't know if she's gonna like this one.
Yeah, I was like talking to the dog like on my phone throughout some of it. But I was trying not to let on how much I didn't like it. All
Oh, that
right.
makes me so
Well,
sad.
well, this will make it a really balanced conversation because where Ben and I just crap on it, Jeff, you will lift it up and
There we
I'll
go.
try my
Yeah.
give it its
best.
due.
Yeah.
So,
Do you know what's sad is that this movie scored just high enough in our average rating so that way when we do the draft again, if we do like our end of year review and we have a
mhm.
category for 3 or lower, this got a 3.08. So
Oh,
it's like, oh
I
man, I can't
and
even
truthfully,
draft
like
it.
Amanda, I actually almost knocked it lower than I gave it.
Mm,
Because in my head I was like, did I really like it more than Terminator, which was 1.75?
hmm.
mm,
Um,
yeah.
I think I did, but not by a lot. I think a couple things I just want to start with. Because I actually feel like I took a lot of notes on this one. But half of them are like, what is going on? Why is this happening? Um, but I think two things kind of off the bat. One, I'm struck. This happened with Chinatown. This happened to some degree with The Shining, although I liked The Shining more. I don't know what it is, but I feel like older films that I didn't grow up with or watch growing up, they have like such a different tenor to them and such a different like vibe to them that it's sometimes hard to connect with older films because I don't know if it's the pacing or if it's the um kind of way of dialogue or things like that, the filming style. Like there's something about them that I think makes them hard to connect with if they weren't part of your, growing up. Like I don't think that about some movies I've watched from that era a long time ago, like
Hmm.
Psycho or something like that, which is an all-time favorite of mine. Or some of the ones I watched as a kid, like Wizard of Oz or Mary Poppins or things like that. But there are some that I feel like when I'm watching them now, especially things that are all-time acclaimed, um, that you kind of have to like adjust your expectations of what those movies are going to be like. And I think that's even true for movies I loved, like The Godfather. It's got a different, they've got like a different tenor to them. And sometimes it works for me and sometimes it doesn't. And in this particular one, it didn't work for me. And then the other thing I will like to say, and then I'll let you two talk, is I really, really struggled with the Dustin Hoffman character. Um, I read something afterwards that I felt like captured that, like, they said something like what was seen back in the 60s and 70s as like madly in love has like now feels mentally ill and stalkerish. And that's how I felt watching him in this movie. Like to me, there was no redeeming qualities in that character.
Yeah, I would agree with you on that one. Actually, this is interesting. So, Geoff, I went and read your review on Letterboxd, and I saw that you liked someone else's review, and I went and read that review. And that review was all about how Dustin Hoffman's character is the villain of this movie. And I was like, yes.
Yeah.
Yes, he
Yeah.
is. But yes, I agree with you, Ben. The character Ben was very much I couldn't find anything redeeming about him, like to like root for him. I don't know. And I think personally the way the dialogue was written, I found it very annoying, very grating the way they talked to each other, all the characters. And I was like, I can't do it. Um, yeah.
See, for me, I connected with kind of the anxieties that Ben was feeling early in the movie, at least from what I could pick up on. He was clearly accomplished in college. He was an editor. He ran track. He got scholarships. He was very accomplished. And then as soon as he gets propelled back into the quote unquote real world, he's just faced with just constant pressure from adults, just being like, oh, what are you going to do with your life? Like, that's an overwhelming feeling. And you can kind of tell, probably as someone who maybe is a bookworm and an athlete and, at a top level in college, maybe doesn't have the greatest social cues and doesn't quite know how to handle himself maybe in publicly, or is like a little goody two shoes or what have you. So in the mannerisms in which he portrayed himself or which he talked, it felt like to me like the Benjamin character was overwhelmed all the time and just wanted to like get a little taste of freedom. And to me, I constantly felt like, oh, he's getting pressured from his parents, and then eventually causes him to go to the crazy lengths he goes through throughout this movie. Ultimately, in my opinion, like being used by Mrs. Robinson, even though he clearly enjoyed quite a bit of that relationship, to what he does at the end of the movie. I felt like it kind of reached a breaking point for him, and then in which case he kind of takes it and runs with it. But no, I weirdly felt for his character, even though, yes, did he, was he, what he doing by the end of the movie right? No, of course not. But I felt like I connected with it, though, or at least I could kind of understand why he went to the lengths that he did, which made me appreciate the movie maybe a little bit more personally.
I think I would have I agreed with a lot of what you were saying if he was less of a jerk to the daughter.
Mm-hmm.
Like, because I do agree, like, his parents were difficult. He was, kind of wayward coming out of college, not knowing what to do with his life, and they were all pressuring him to get a job or get married or go to graduate school or whatever. And then I agree with you, like Mrs. Robinson, obviously, as the adult in this situation should, do better. But
Mhm.
like, I just wanted something to root for him. And I feel like if he had been like sweet or kind to the daughter, I could have gotten there. But he was like a jerk to her most of the entire movie. He treated her horribly. And I just couldn't get past like that. Because then I was like, well, he's just a jerk. Like he doesn't deserve any good things.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I mean, obviously he was a major jerk to her on their first date, and on purpose,
Right.
because
Right.
he,
Right. Right.
didn't want to take her out again, whatever. But then kind of like just instantly, like switches on that date to, oh no, like I'm sorry I was mean to you. Like let's it's kind of like what you said, Ben, about this like mental illness thing. It's like he just like flipped so fast from like I'm gonna treat you terribly to like, oh wait, no, I'll be nice. We're on a first date. I love this. Um, but also, I may have lost track of time here, but like, I don't think they quote unquote dated for all that long before
Nope.
he, yeah, decided he was madly in love with her and was going to marry her and chased her
Right.
down at college and upended
Well,
her
wasn't
life.
it just like the next day or the day? Like, I mean, it was like
Yeah.
right away when he told her about the mother, and then she left, and then
Okay. Yeah. That's what I
it
thought.
was like nothing. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, that was obviously very bizarre. Like, what are we doing here, son?
I almost took that as his breaking point. That was like he's been asked like, "Oh, keep
Breaking
going to
point in
school,
his mental
whatever."
health journey.
Yes, exactly that. But it's like, hey, I've been used by Mrs. Robinson in this situation in terms of like when they're having that sort of confession to each other in the bedroom in the hotel room, and she was like, "Oh, I didn't get to live the life that you're currently living because I had my daughter at a very young age, and um, I." So it was almost like her way of harkening back to her youth and what could have been, and her kind of almost polluting Benjamin's very, young mind. And that's all that he's known. And he's essentially like, oh, my parents keep putting this pressure on me. Mrs. Robinson keeps pushing this pressure on me. I'm just at a breaking point. I'm going to go to the most extreme lengths possible and just say, screw it. I'm going to go off and do something impulsive and crazy and completely unlike myself. And that's why I think he went to the lengths that he did, and why, again, I well, I obviously don't understand the character decision because that's not something I would do, but also I get why the movie would want to maybe frame it like that. Again, not thinking just again as an act of rebellion per se, as a I don't want to deal with this anymore. I just need adults to get out of my life. Like, well, he's an adult, but older adults to get out of my life. And I want to do what I want to do. And in this case, I want to marry Elaine and I want to go off and just do whatever I want, which clearly, as seen by kind of the end of the movie there as well, is like, well, did you really need to do this? I don't know.
Mm.
But yeah, that's my interpretation of it.
Well, and aside from that one brief scene that Amanda was referring to after he like acknowledged he had been
Mm-hmm.
acting like a jerk at the beginning of the date, like they had like a 5 minute scene in the car there where they were sweet with each other, and then the rest of the time he was like a stalker.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah. I mean,
Also,
yes,
his parents
I felt
wanted
like this
him to
played more
be.
like a horror film than a rom-com. Not just with the zooming in and out, the camera things, which were definitely some horror movie vibes in some of those moments. But even just with like the choices made by the characters.
Yeah. Geoff, to your point, his parents wanted him to be with Elaine.
yeah.
So I don't know that he was necessarily saying, I'm going to go do what I want and not listen to any of the adults in my life.
Well, maybe to the
Um,
extreme that he did in terms of like, hey, I haven't told her yet. I haven't asked anybody yet. I have no details. Okay, bye. And then we never hear from his parents again the rest of the movie.
yeah. Um, yeah, I don't know. I mean, I I also just want to be on record that I do think Mrs. Robinson is the bigger villain here. Like, I don't want to pretend that she's not a villain because literally everything she did in this movie was terrible.
Yes.
Um,
Can you
so I don't want to
imagine
seem
the
like I'm victim blaming
right. No,
Dustin
he's the
Hoffman's
victim there in that
character.
scenario for sure.
He absolutely is. And she is awful and everything. But, also I think at being a young person here, he needs to learn about consequences of
Right.
his decisions because she did not force him to sleep with her.
Right. And
Um,
also, he's a college graduate, not a high schooler. Like, you do have
mhm.
some agency over your decisions when you're 21 years old.
Yeah, for sure.
Especially at that time, I feel like 21 was even older then than it is now in terms of culturally.
Mm. Oh yeah.
I mean, you had people getting married and having kids at 21 back then much more frequently.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Can you imagine if the genders were reversed in this movie, how creepy it would play?
Oh God.
Isn't
It,
that always the case though?
always the case. Oh, that yeah, that would have been
It'd be so creepy.
so weird. Oh my gosh. I'm like picturing in my brain, like I can't even picture it. It's
Yeah.
just
I
I
mean,
also, you mentioned his parents, Amanda, and I just
Mhm.
would like, well, first of all, they're so weird in this movie. His parents are so strange. But I also could not believe William Daniels is playing his dad. I was like, has William Daniels been an old person for forever? Because then he was Mr. Feeney, and he's still
mm,
alive today. He's like 98 years old. And like, I feel like he's been an old man now, playing an older character since the 60s.
I had
Um,
no idea that was Mr. Feeney.
yeah,
Oh
yeah.
my gosh.
And he's only 10 years older than Dustin Hoffman, though. I looked that up.
oh
Wow.
really?
So that,
That's
but because I was like, how is Mr. Feeney, who's also still alive now, playing a father of a 20-something-year-old in a 1967 movie? That is like the math is not adding up for me.
he just had an adult looking face, I guess.
I guess so.
Guess so.
But also like why would you buy your child a professional scuba suit? Like why would that be your first thought of a present? Like, hey, was it his birthday or was it for the graduation?
I think it was for the
It
graduation.
was for the
I think so.
graduation. Yeah, like why?
They're
If
so
if,
weird, those parents.
if
So
you're gonna
weird.
do that, you got to give some backstory, maybe. Like just a 2 second conversation about, oh, maybe we went like scuba diving on vacation once and he loved it and I bought him this thing. I don't know, something, but like just to come out of left field and be like, this is the gift I got. And also the fact that it only cost him $200. That's some inflation right there.
Yep.
Yeah. Oh, so humiliating. Just watching that, I was just cringing. It's just like the whole party scene where he's bouncing between all of his parents' friends, just being like, "Oh, hey, have you seen that?" Like throughout the entire movie, we don't actually see any of Ben's friends. Like,
No.
first, does Ben have any friends? But also, like, this is all from the parents' perspective. Again, adding on to the insanity of this movie and just the unfortunate everything that happened here. But yeah, that whole time I'm just like, oh man, is this bad? And yeah, that little bit of introduction would be nice, but yeah, that is rough to go through and just it's so bad. I like the way they filmed it too, with like filling in his perspective, how he can't hear anything. Like sure he can probably hear stuff, but like he's just trapped and just watching everybody just being like, oh, go do this, and you get whatever. Like it's rough. So one thing that stuck out to me the first time I saw this movie is the soundtrack. And if you don't know who Simon and Garfunkel is before this movie, you sure do
You
after the
certainly do
fact.
now.
Oh my gosh, the when just I think Scarborough Fair was played like on loop for maybe like 10 minutes of this movie, which was very, very entertaining.
I can't think of a movie that reused the same songs as much ever.
Oh yeah,
Seriously,
I
there were
can't think of any
only
examples either.
what, 4 songs? It was like The
Like
Sound of
every time he
Silence,
like went for a
Scarborough
drive, they started
Fair.
playing Scarborough Fair.
I know. Well, and that's one of the things that stuck out to me is the fact that they just literally would just play the entire song. And
Yeah,
like Jeff said, and sometimes loop it. Like you just don't usually get that in movies. You'll
no.
get, part of the song or whatever, but they would the second time they played The Sound of Silence, they literally just played the song from
Yeah.
beginning to end.
And that's something, again, that's like, I think getting used to like the vibe of a movie from that time. There's no way a movie today would do that.
Yeah, no.
I mean, you had when we did That Thing You Do, that was about a song and you never got the full song. Like,
I was about to say they never played the song in full. You just got the bits and pieces. Yeah.
Uh.
the other movie that Amanda had no idea about, just to tie it in here.
That one was a more fun surprise.
That's fair. I I did like the use of the sound of silence though, specifically at the beginning and the end of the movie. I think the way that the song bookends everything, I don't know. I was impacted by it the first time because I didn't. It's one of those where after the fact I'd read like, oh, best movie endings of all time, and you see The Graduate come up in a lot of those sort of lists. It was something that I wasn't super aware of or tuned into, but as soon as it happened, I was like, oh, and letting you sit with it with the adults staring at them, it's like, oh my gosh, like that.
Yeah.
To me, the first time that hit like a ton of bricks, and it did as well the second time around, even when I knew it was coming. Yeah, it was really really impactful for me. So as ridiculous as the use of Simon and Garfunkel is in this movie, I really did like when it was used like, sporadically. And to me it hit very, very hard.
And there's so much lingering, like you said. I mean, they play the whole song or something, but I was thinking like in that final scene when the bus is driving, like, I feel like if this movie was made in 2025, you'd get that very beginning, and then when the drums kick in, would be like cut to credits, like that. That's how they would do it. They just so much lingering happens in these older movies, I feel like.
Yeah.
Yeah. They really make you sit with that.
Yeah.
For sure. Almost plays like the silent era of movies as well, where, there were so many extended takes and so much like locking in the screen and relying on the facial expressions of actors and actresses.
Right.
And
Right.
so it almost seemed like that too,
Right.
where obviously the music though,
Well, they were
really
closer to that era than they are to now.
That is
Like-
true. That is crazy. Oh my gosh, don't remind me that I'm old. Like this movie came out in 67, so it's almost 60 years old. And yeah, it was 45 years removed from the era of like Buster Keaton, Charlie Chaplin.
Yeah.
So dang, we're old.
No, this movie's old.
All right, fine, we'll go with that.
Yeah, we're not old. That's right. I also just while we're on that final scene, the screaming and the mouths moving in the church, and then them being like, bah! I was like, this is outrageous, this scene.
Insanity.
But when they were all, when it cut to like Mrs. Robinson and and they were all like moving their mouths, like, and I was like, what is the intent here? Because that's again another place where it felt very horror movie to me. I wrote all in caps, what is happening in this final?
Right. Just craziness. What did I write? Did I write anything?
Do you find, I mean, I want to know in human history, how many times do you think a wedding has gotten broken up in real life compared to on film?
Oh,
Because I feel like
zero.
it doesn't really happen in real life. Like somebody actually comes into the church and interrupts.
Weirdly reminds me of Shrek. That was the first thing I think of when like famous movie wedding breakups. I think of Shrek is the first one I think of, and then this one along with that.
Shrek
But
is not real life, sweetie.
I know, but also, yeah, I know it's not real life, but I'm saying from like movie perspectives. But yeah, no, I don't. I guess that's the beauty of movies.
Yeah. Something
Well,
that
it's
happens a
like-
lot more percentage-wise in movies than in real life,
Oh,
I
1,000%.
think.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we talked about this recently with another movie too. What was that? Shoot. Oh, we were talking about Spies. Like
Yes.
how, like,
Yes.
do we think like all this kind of stuff happens? And it's like maybe it did back in the day, and then they just started making movies about it, and then it just became a thing. But I don't know, maybe it doesn't happen as often anymore.
Yeah.
And of course, they make it more dramatic because it's a movie.
Right. But I guess like when that does happen, like it should feel like, I don't know, like I feel like for it to have the desired effect, you need to be like rooting for the couple. And I wasn't rooting for the couple here. Like there was an episode of Seventh Heaven where they did that, and I was rooting for the couple. And and also like the person that she was marrying in that scene was a jerk. Like so you like wanted this to happen. Whereas here I'm like, who's the jerk? Is and I think that makes it not feel romantic or fun. It feels like a little icky to me.
Oh, absolutely.
I don't feel like we've spent a lot of time so far though talking about Mrs. Robinson.
We have spent no time talking about Mrs. Robinson.
Yeah.
I said she's the villain,
What you did, yes.
and she sure is. That's what I got to say about her.
It was an interesting portrayal. I do think like she was my favorite actress in this movie. because I thought was the most interesting performance. Because I was
Hmm.
very unhappy with Dustin Hoffman and frustrated with I don't know, oh, Catherine, what's her name? Catherine Ross, I think,
Yes.
the daughter. Um, but I thought Anne Bancroft was really interesting in this movie. Like gave an interesting portrayal and definitely like gave the vibe of like an older woman. I don't know even know how much older she is than Dustin Hoffman, but gave the vibe of a older, jaded character. Like even though like I do agree she was the villain, I do think her stuff was the most interesting parts of the movie.
I'd agree with that.
Yeah, I agree as well. Even from the beginning, like knowing, rewatching this and knowing what she does or who she is, like you can spot things like early on in the movie. Like she's at the party and like she's got her eyes locked on Benjamin the entire time. She's being very persuasive the first, like right off the get-go. And then as the relationship develops, she starts wanting more and revealing more. And then you come to realize she wants to embrace the part of her life that she couldn't properly live because she was a young mom, to wanting to keep Ben all to herself, to realizing that Ben is almost like Mr. Robinson and Elaine is her. And her character development in this movie is definitely incredibly interesting and compelling. And again, to me, I know we've all talked about Ben, but um, I think it adds another layer to this movie that makes it so interesting and so compelling. And even when she's not on screen, you feel her presence throughout and you kind of feel her influence throughout. And I know for me, I was certainly moved by seeing her story develop throughout the movie.
Okay, but also at one point she got on the phone and she took her earrings off, and I was like, yes, so relatable. It sucks to talk on the phone when you have earrings in.
Like I've never related to a character more than Mrs. Robinson.
In that moment,
I
yes.
see myself on the screen. Yes.
I was like, oh my gosh. Because she picked up the phone and she like took her earrings out and then, proceeded to do whatever she was doing. But I was
I
like,
never really thought about that.
yes, it hurts.
I'd
I
believe it.
mean, yeah, like especially at least the like phones back in the day, like the one she's using with the actual like handheld receiver, there was a little bit of like an indent in
Mm.
the like top portion for your ear. So I feel like I didn't wear earrings a lot back when I was using that type of phone, but I feel like that would be slightly more comfortable. But yeah, if you have anything that's dangling like this, that's gonna. But cell phones are even worse now because there's no indent. It just right into your face. It's great podcasting, everyone. See me slamming my cell phone into the side of my head.
Well, it can be a nice visual when Geoff puts it on our videos. And those of you
Anyways,
listening at home can just picture Amanda whacking her ear with the cell phone.
all you ladies out there who know the struggle. Now that I've completely derailed us.
So I was reading about this movie afterwards, and I think it was Roger Ebert who wrote that it was like the funniest movie of the year. Did you find this movie funny?
I
No.
I
did.
did. You did? I
I
did
did.
not.
I found this movie funny personally.
The
I don't
only
know
time I
what it
thought it
was,
was funny
but
was when he got to the hotel and the clerk was like, "Are you here for an affair, sir?"
the
But
bits in the hotel were good. I enjoyed that. No, I thought it was funny watching Ben try to struggle early on with managing, like just trying to, in his own way, seduce Mrs. Robinson and not really knowing what to do. Or the scenes with Mr. Robinson when he asks him, "What do you take?" "Oh, I take bourbon," and he just pours him scotch regardless. I always laughed at those parts. No, I found this movie funny.
okay.
I really did, in like
I
its own sort of dark way.
I think there were certain parts, like you said, at the hotel and stuff, but I think because I just so viscerally disliked Dustin Hoffman in this movie, like I think a funnier leading man would have upped my enjoyment of this movie, or like a
Yeah.
more frantic, you know,
Mm-hmm.
again, also like a character more to root for would have
Mm-hmm.
helped me a lot.
Hmm.
That's fair. I know for me, when I initially saw this movie, I didn't think I would root for the Benjamin character, but I ultimately did by the end of the movie, obviously not to the at the end of the movie, not necessarily, but normally I wouldn't connect with the character like that, but for some reason with this movie, it just worked for me. I don't know how to even properly describe it, but it just worked.
So if this movie got remade in 2025, who would you cast as Ben? Who would you cast as Mrs. Robinson?
Oh man, what would you even
Timothy
do?
Chalamet?
No, ew, no. I'm gonna say the kid that we just talked about when we recorded Dear Evan Hansen, the one that was in
Oh yeah, they just made that movie. No Hard Feelings. There you go. That's The
Yeah.
Graduate. No, I'm kidding. Andrew Barth Feldman.
yeah, I would cast him as
I thought
Ben.
you were talking about Ben Platt. Sounds like what?
Duh. He can totally pass as a graduate. Didn't you listen to our entire conversation about how youthful he is?
And then Mrs. Robinson would be, I don't know.
Ooh.
I feel like you have a lot of choices now because there's a lot of like 50 to 60-year-old actresses who look like they're 30.
Well, what's that movie?
Nicole Kidman.
No,
Oh, Baby Girl. Yeah, Baby Girl.
Baby Girl, or what was that other one? Like The Idea of You or whatever.
Oh,
It was
Anne
like
Hathaway.
Anne Hathaway and some young boy, and they were doing it. I don't know. I didn't watch it, but
Nicholas Skalitzin. He's
That
like
was,
a
like,
new
the whole
like
premise.
Here's
heartthrob.
to you, Mrs. Hathaway. How many times do you think Dustin Hoffman says Mrs. Robinson in that movie?
a billion and
Take
two.
take a shot every time.
Oh my gosh, she'd be
Dead.
in the hospital.
All right. Well, does anyone have any other final thoughts or even funny things that you may have noticed and wanted to point out?
Getting back to the conversation about Mr. Robinson and the bourbon and scotch, every time he would just stick his paws into the ice and then throw it in the glass and then give it to Ben, I was just like barfing a little bit on the inside. I was like, oh no.
Yeah, Mr. Robinson's not a super likable character.
No.
You know, there's probably a pair of tongs or a scoop sitting right next to the ice bucket too. And
I know,
he's
seriously.
like,
Look
nope.
at that bar. Like, absolutely.
Or he could, take the cup and scoop it in the ice too, but no.
Oh, nope. Also, with this episode getting released pretty early on in the summertime, kids have graduated. Looking out and seeing Ben hanging out by the pool as the summer is progressing just got me so excited for the summer months. I know we don't have a pool of our own. It's part of our HOA and whatever, but yeah, that looked comfy.
Yeah, definitely. Two things I wanted to point out. One is like, did no one graduate college back then? Which, like, I mean, I guess like now that I'm actually thinking about it, maybe not quite as much.
I think it was a bigger deal, but I wouldn't think it was a bigger deal for people of that wealth. And
Yeah, I felt like they were making such a big deal out of the fact that he graduated, and everyone at that party was so hyped. And I was like,
but honestly, probably a lot more first generation graduates back then.
yeah,
So it's possible the parents didn't,
Yeah, and I mean, literally, that thought just came to me as it was coming out of my mouth. I'm like, wait, in the 60s, yeah, maybe people didn't graduate college as often. Also, the number of times that Ben whimpers in this movie, and I don't even know if whimpering is the right word, but he makes a noise that's just kind of like, like so many times that I felt the need to write it down. I don't know the number of times, but and it was just like, I don't know. He would just be talking to someone, or someone would have said something to him, and he would just make that noise. And I'm like, what choice is this? This is a choice. All right. Well, Ben, I think you have a TV recommendation for us today.
Yes, I know I said I only have one. I actually have two. Because I forgot about one that was
liar.
in my notes, but then I just decided to make it a TV recommendation. So there's a very brief scene in The Graduate where Benjamin walks into a party at the hotel, and they're like asking him if he's on the guest list. And there's two women standing there, one with red hair and one older lady. Both those actresses are characters on Bewitched. And the fun thing about those two is the older lady, Marion Lorne, she played Aunt Clara, who was one of my favorite characters on that show, probably maybe my favorite character on that show. Very bumbling old witch who just messed everything up and got confused all the time. Really funny performance. She died during the run of Bewitched, soon after The Graduate, I think, like about a year or so after The Graduate came out. And when she died, they wanted another bumbling witch on the show, and they replaced her with Alice Ghostley, who was the other woman in that scene. So,
Fun fact.
so little Bewitched love for those two. I wish their parts had been bigger in the movie, especially Marion Lauren. I think she's so funny on the show. But my one that is thematically much more connected to The Graduate than Bewitched is is a limited series that was on FX Hulu in 2020 called A Teacher. And it stars Kate Mara and Nick Robinson. Nick is
Robinson!
Nick is a high school student, and Kate Mara is his teacher. And you can guess if I'm relating it to The Graduate, what happens in this film or in this
I
show.
wonder.
It didn't get a lot of acclaim, but I actually thought it was pretty compelling. And I thought Nick Robinson was a much more sympathetic and much more clearly a victim in that show than Dustin Hoffman was necessarily portrayed in this movie. And Kate Mara is, I think like she was like the right type of actress to do this because she looks kind of younger. She, something where you could like it felt like something that could happen, not that it should, but felt like something that could. And it was really interesting to see both sides of it. And I don't think ultimately they like really were too sympathetic to her, but it was like an 8 episode series. So you explored like her husband and her, you know what I mean? Like all the other things that come with this in a way that a 2 hour movie could not do. So I actually thought again, it didn't get a lot of traction when it aired, but I actually thought it was pretty good.
Awesome. Thank you. And Geoff, do you have any movie recommendations today?
I do. I have three. The first one is in kind of celebration of Mike Nichols, the director, and looking at his filmography. I think it's important to kind of look at what's worked for him. And I might have recommended this movie with Mrs. Doubtfire, but you know what? I'll do it again. The Birdcage with Robin Williams and Gene Hackman, and kind of I don't want to say it's like because it's not a coming of age story at all, but it's trying to, young love kind of deal as well, and trying to make sure things work out. And so I think, and plus it was successful and well liked and everything like that. So yeah, I would go with The Birdcage as number one. And then the next two kind of play into the themes of the movie. The second one is about love and age difference. And I mentioned it very briefly, but I'm going to go with Baby Girl. More because you don't really root for the characters ultimately. I know neither of you really liked, Ben or anything like that, but there's an age difference. There's an element of lust to the relationship. However, the man is in control. The younger man is in control in the relationship. This movie stars Nicole Kidman, Harris Dickinson, and Antonio Banderas. I had a lot of fun with this movie. I know there were quite a few people that liked it. Both of us had very entertaining screenings of it, Amanda. I think we both had some fun. We saw it separately, but we each had our own sort of fun with each screening of it.
Yeah, except beware, because Baby Girl is not rated PG.
Very
like
much not.
The Graduate. And it also tries to make you think that Antonio Banderas is not a successful husband, and I think that's just not believable in the slightest.
No, not in the slightest. And then the third movie is a coming of age where the protagonist is not someone that is inherently rootable, and they kind of make some really dumb choices, but ultimately is from a place of kind of rebellion, and they're trying to grow up and find their place in the world. I picked The Worst Person in the World, which is a Norwegian film. And the reason why I'm also kind of recommending this one is because the director of this movie, Joachim Trier, and the star of the movie, Renate Reinsve, have a movie coming out later this year called Sentimental Value, which did very, very well at the Cannes Film Festival. And I have a feeling this might be a player come Oscar season. So this could be a good one to watch and prep for that movie. But this movie was very entertaining. It tells a story about a year in the life of a young adult who falls in and out of love, makes really dumb choices, but does it in a very entertaining way, and the movie is very compelling. So yeah, I would definitely pair that movie with this one as well, more for the coming of age nature of the movie and finding your place in the world and making plenty of mistakes along the way.
Awesome. Thank you. All right. Let's dive into our top four for today, which is our favorite Simon and Garfunkel songs. So, Ben, you were the most hyped about picking this as our top four today. So, we're going to start with you.
Yeah, I do enjoy Simon and Garfunkel, but I will say like my top four feels very much like a basic list. Um,
Not going to
and
get
it's
any
not because I
deep
don't
cuts
know
like
other
Elvis.
ones. It's I don't know all the deep cuts, and they don't have like the kind of like list of exhaustive list of songs some bands do because they weren't together that long. But this is one of those ones where I feel like some of their most famous are my favorites, even though I have heard other ones. So I apologize that this is going to sound kind of basic, but it is what it is.
I think we're all going to have some overlap.
I
That's for
think we
sure.
will. My honorable mentions are Cecilia and the 59th Street Bridge song, Feeling Groovy. I almost put Scarborough Fair on there, but then this movie made me so annoyed with that song. I was like, you know what, never mind. So my number four is Mrs. Robinson, which I've liked this song long before ever seeing the film. I think it's a good little ditty. Number three is I Am a Rock, which I really love. That was very close to going. I just love the first two so much that I had to put it three, but I really, for being like my third favorite song of an artist, it's one of my favorites. I love that song. Number two is Bridge Over Troubled Water, which is just a beautiful song. And probably a lot of people sang it, the gospel version in high school choir. It's a very popular song for high school choirs. I sang it with like I think it was with like an area all-state group or something like that. Really fun song to sing. But the original by the Simon Garfunkel is great too. And then number one, easily though, for me is The Sound of Silence. I think that song is so haunting and so beautiful. It's probably like a top 10 all-time song for me, honestly. So even though it was played to death, it didn't bother me as much as Scarborough Fair in this movie because I just love that song. And I love anytime it gets covered too, even though people have done different things with it. I just think it's such a haunting melody that it's just an all-timer for me.
Mm-hmm. Kind of reminds me of like Hallelujah.
Oh yeah.
I feel like it has that same like classic.
Yeah, I like it better than Hallelujah, but I do see what you're saying.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying they sound alike, but it's the same like whatever words. Words fail.
Words fail.
What a callback.
My favorite Simon and Garfunkel song.
Like waving through a window.
Oh, words.
Can you imagine
fail.
the whole Dear Evan Hansen score in Simon and Garfunkel style?
Oh gosh.
Oh, I'm turning red in the face.
Okay, Geoff, let's hear your list.
So, much like the Elvis list that we did for Lilo and Stitch, I do not have an extensive history with Simon and Garfunkel. I know the big ones. So again, apologies that there will be zero deep cuts in this section. But number four is Mrs. Robinson. Number three is, I'll go Bridge Over Troubled Water. And I definitely sang it in high school. So yeah, shout out to all the religious choirs. And
I'll be your bridge of troubled water.
I don't think we sang it that upbeat.
That's the gospel version.
Number two is Sound of Silence. Again, much like you said, Ben, I love that song. I'm also one of those people that do enjoy the Disturbed cover of that song as well. I know that gets a lot of play on rock radio. So yeah, I like Sound of Silence. And the number one, weirdly for me, like Cecilia for me is like a song that I love it. I enjoy it. I love listening to it. And I don't know why it just hits to me so much harder than all of their other songs. But to me, I love that song so much. When it comes on, it just feels like such a joyous breath of fresh air. I love listening to it. So yeah, I apologize for no deep cuts. I apologize for no real thorough examinations of it or my deep history with Simon and Garfunkel. But yeah, They got some good songs.
Well, you will find no deep cuts on my list either. I actually didn't know that I knew as many Simon and Garfunkel songs until I actually looked at their greatest hits on Spotify. And then I was like, wait, I know this one. I know this one. That's what I get for having my parents grow up listening to the oldies station where they played 50s and 60s. So I just want to say I actually forgot to talk about this during the rest of our podcast, but I'm going to say it now. That prior to this movie, Mrs. Robinson probably would have made my list. But I am so annoyed at the fact that I now know that that song was made for this movie that I'm never going to be able to enjoy it again. So thank you, The Graduate, for ruining the song Mrs. Robinson for me. So it doesn't get an honorable mention. It's not on the list. Can't listen to it the same ever
Here's
again.
to you, Mrs. Robinson.
I just thought it was about this nice woman and Mrs. Robinson, and now I know the ugly truth. So my number 4, actually, guys, I have 2 on my list that you guys didn't put on yours, so we got some variety.
Wow.
Number 4 is "Wake Up Little Susie."
Oh yeah.
Just a fun little ditty. I feel like all their songs are fun little ditties, most of them.
I mean, maybe not Sound of Silence.
That's the funnest.
That was so fun.
The funnest of the ditties. Number 3 is "Homeward Bound."
Oh yeah, I thought about putting that one on my honorable mention.
Yeah, I thought about "I Am a Rock." I like that one too. Number 2, "The Sound of Silence," because yes. I will say I do also enjoy the Disturbed version, but it bothers me every time he says "whisper" because he goes "whispered." He really hangs out on that and I'm like, oh, I hate that. And then my number 1 is "Cecilia" because it's so fun. Like Geoff said, a breath of fresh air. All right. Well, I think that wraps it up on The Graduate for us. If you'd like to watch along with us, we will next be watching Inception.
I was going to do that if you weren't going to do it. Nicely done.
If you didn't know what that sound was, that's the sound of Inception.
I don't know what that means.
I know. It'll make so much more sense after you watch the movie. Or it won't. Or you'll be like, what are you guys even talking about? So yeah, be sure to watch Inception if you want to watch along with us. If you enjoyed this episode, please consider leaving us a rating or review and follow us on all our social channels. Thank you so much for listening. We will see y'all next week.
To infinity and beyond!
Why so serious?
I am serious, and don't call me Shirley.
We're not worthy! We're not worthy!
Keep the change, you filthy animal.
What you just said is one of the most insanely idiotic things I have ever heard. At no point in your rambling, incoherent response were you even close to anything that could be considered a rational thought. Everyone in this room is now dumber for having listened to it. I award you no points, and may God have mercy on your soul.
I said it before and I'll say it again. Life moves pretty fast. You don't stop and look around once in a while, you could miss it.